Gwinnett County, retired out of the military in 2014, and I'm doing some jobs since then, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm very open. I don't know much about the water in Atlanta. I know a lot about the Gwinnett County water, but I know the training needs are probably similar. We have a county structure, so we answer to elected officials, to the board of commissioners. We have a county administrator, maybe similar to a city manager or something like that. We have a county HR system, so out of all the departments in the county, we are just one of them. As you know, the water department's really, to me, I like to say we're a business that operates like a government, because we have to play the roles of government, but we're really more set up financially, things like that, by the business. But the public safety portion of it, it makes sense why we're in the government as well. So that's kind of our environment. A little bit about me: 25 years active duty. So I'm a military guy. I started without a degree. I went in out of high school. Didn't know what I had some. I did algebra. I did some college prep courses. I actually went to college for a year. It's kind of a college dropout. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had a friend in the military. I needed direction. I went into the military. Started kind of, at a technical level. I went into the picture to the left, submarines. If you don't know much about submarines, that's a very rigid, structured, do it this way. It's kind of like working in a laboratory. If you're going to test for BOD, there's one way to do it, and there's certain times you have to meet and everything. That's kind of the submarine world. It's a way to do things. It's very structured. It's very rigid. Then I switched to aviation. Got a degree on my own in the Navy. Used some of the GI Bill and tuition assistance. Got commissioned. Became an officer. And then switched over to aviation. Totally different. So you have the military culture, but there's actually subcultures in the military. Aviation's totally different mindset. It's all about decision making. Doesn't matter if you do things. In aviation, there's a term: a good plan done timely is better than a great plan done late. Meaning, it doesn't matter if you have the perfect plan if you run out of gas and you're swimming home, right? So aviation is much more free thinking, decision making, what's going on around you and everything. So the most interesting you see is when you put these two people in the room together, because it's like they don't get along at all. No, this is the way you got to do it. It's like putting a lab person in with a field crew in. Right? They just don't, there's totally different mindsets, right? So I've had that experience. I've had the enlisted side, being basically the tradesperson. I started in the engine room. I was trained as an electrician. So I was telling Cheryl, the Navy has a lot of turnover. They have people coming and going. On that submarine, it's going to be entirely different. In 3 or 4 years, that entire workforce turns over. Nobody on that submarine is there anymore. They've all moved on. So the Navy has very structured training programs. So that's where my training background is. When I wasn't on the submarine, I went back and I was an instructor. I was teaching. I have about 6 years teaching in front of people in classroom settings through the Navy programs. All technical-based programs. So basically, they have a water plant inside that submarine. They teach you how to make water. And things like that. So they have an evaporator system, basically. So, the common theme there is water. The problem there, that's not a water problem, that's a salt problem. You got a lot of salt, but it's all water. So that's my background. A little bit about Gwinnett County. Technically, honestly, maybe help me if understand you as well as we go along, but I don't really know a lot about Atlanta water system. But we have roughly about 600 positions. We have about a 7% vacancy, so they're not all filled. I'm guessing, we have problems filling technical positions. Does that ring a bell? Probably. I'm guessing you have the same thing. You probably have a bunch of people that are going to retire in the next 4 to 5 years. and you're worried about turnover, you're worried about that losing that knowledge. Does that ring a bell? Yep, guess what? Everywhere I go, it's the same problem. And it's not only in water, it's when I go to ATD conferences and things like that, UPS, everybody's dealing with these same issues. We have 2 water filtration plants. We have 3 water reclamation plants, lots of piping. Our biggest challenge in Gwinnett was growth, was rapid growth. So we had a lot of technological change in a short period of time. We went from small package plants to basically large super plants with very advanced technologies. So what happened there from a training perspective is we changed the environment around folks. We put them, Gwinnett County 20, 30 years ago was basically farmland, right? And it was just small and they were using very rural technologies. Those people that we hired are still in our organization today. Some of them came, why did they come to Gwinnett County and work for the water department? Because they worked on the farm, because they had mechanical skills. And back then, it was very mechanical, right? We didn't just move their cheese, we changed their cheese. It's not even cheese anymore. We built, around these same people, we built these massive technological plants with SCADA systems and things like that. So, and it's the same people that are there, right? So we got to the point where, hey, we changed their plant, we changed everything around them. We need to change the way we're training people, right? And I started working for the county it'll be 3 years ago in October. And the county, before I got there, kind of recognized this. So they started some investments right about 2015. It was actually pretty good timing because I came in and a lot of the groundwork was being laid at that time. So they decided, hey, we're going to invest money. So that's key. You've got to have budget. If you're going to do something you're not doing today, you better have commitment to it. And that's just not all hoorah. I'm talking dollars. So hopefully there's support from the leadership, and you're going to want to commit as an organization to this. So our biggest challenge was technological change. If things are changing around you quickly, if you're going to SCADA systems, if you need more computer skills, you probably have a need for a training program. If you don't, if the people that are working there now are changing and they need those computer skills and they don't have them, you're going to need to train them to do that. This is just some of the background about our learning management strategy. You always need to be aligned with the vision and strategy of the organization. So what's the first thing to get, if we have another 2008 scenario, housing, economic crisis, who are the first people they're going to look at to cut? Training, right? They're going to look at, hey, what are you doing, Frank? What are you doing with all this money we're giving you, right? I need to be aligned with what the organization wants to do. I'm in a good spot for me because our organization has made a commitment to our employees and they want to have the best trained, highest quality people possible. Now they didn't really know what that meant back in 2015 and 2014 when they kind of started on this adventure. So we've been working towards that solution since then. But that's kind of the key. And if the organization doesn't value that and they're not willing to commit to that, then like for me to just come in to somewhere and try to lift the organization up by myself and not have any resources or the upper management support is a pretty tall order. So that's kind of one thing. Inventory of current resources. So I'll guarantee you, everywhere I've gone, before I came into the water industry, I worked at a boiler room and I built a training program. So the first thing you do anytime you come into a new organization is inventory what's going on, right? There are things in Gwinnett County when I got there that were working well. They had systems in place. They had investments in place. They have people who know what they're doing. They exist in every organization. So I like to say, don't throw baby out with the bathwater, right? There are things in every organization that are working. So what you're trying to do is leverage what works, and then where do you want to be? Where are you? Assess it. What works? Where do you want to be? What's that difference? And make a plan to get there. Okay, and that's kind of what you're doing. So I'm going to talk about some certain systems we had already in place. SAP. I understand Atlanta is on Oracle, right? Your enterprise resource system. We were on SAP. I don't work for SAP. To be honest with you, I don't like SAP. But we had spent lots of money on SAP. So guess what Frank uses? Frank uses SAP because that's what we had, right? We didn't, we had already investments in certain things. So in order to speed up, to redo that or to restructure things, it's just going to slow us down, right? So use what you have, as long as it's working for you, right? We had other investments into SharePoint before I got there. The county said we need to share information better. They invested in SharePoint. Guess what? I have a training SharePoint site. I train people on SharePoint. I show them how to use it. I use it myself to put out information. It's not because I necessarily chose it. It's because we already invested that money into it. So whatever investments you have, you should probably try to leverage those. Unless they're not working for you, then find something else. Readiness assessment. So if you're going to commit, if the organization is going to commit to being a high-performing organization and hiring the best people, that's a commitment across the organization. The question is the organization ready for that? Is the management ready for that? Are they on a mindset is we are going to work through the issues that it takes to change? People don't like change. How many people have an iPhone? How many people have a Samsung, Android? Would you all be willing, same phones, right? Pretty much, if you look on a spec sheet, would everybody be willing to change phones right now? No, absolutely not. Samsung's the best, or iPhone's the best. We don't like change, right? We don't like to do that stuff, right? It's the same thing with the employees. They're not going to like it, right? So you're going to have to be willing to go through that. It's kind of like saying, if I had an iPhone, I'm willing to change to Samsung if it's best for the organization. And I know we're not really actually talking about that, but just people don't like change, right? We like to be in our own comfortable world. So is the leadership ready? Financially, are you ready? Can you financially support investing in IT systems, in training systems, things like that? Culturally, is the workforce ready? One of the things that we did prior to starting this, one of our programs, I'm going to talk more about in the afternoon, is we did a survey. And we kind of said, we went into all the employees and we said, hey, are you ready for leadership development? Are you willing to take new responsibility? Well, how was the leadership development? It was a pretty long survey. It's about 30 or 40 questions. When you send that out to your employees, it's a little nerve-wracking because you don't know what you're going to get back, right? It's like, oh wow, I don't know if I want to see the results, but it actually, we got really positive results. And what we determined is basically, yes, our employees are ready for that change because we had a very positive survey. We had we had Brown and Caldwell was helping us at the beginning of this, at 2015 and partly in 2016. They helped us with the communication strategy, and they also helped us with this survey as well. So they're kind of out of the picture now, but they helped us in the early portions of it. And then IT. Is your IT infrastructure ready? Is your HR system ready to handle change? Are you willing to tackle the issues that are... One thing that I will tell you, when we established this new system, everybody kind of looked at it differently, right? And it's all what's in it for me. The employees kind of looked at it, what's in it for me, but it turned a light on certain aspects of problems that we already had in the organization. So do you have people that have gotten to certain positions that probably don't have the skills to be in that position, right? Yeah, we do. We do have that, right? So we built this new system. It wasn't designed really to fix that. It wasn't designed to fix all the sins of the past and how did that person get there. But what it did, it made us have to deal with that situation. Right? So now if we're going to implement this new system and everybody has to comply with it, what do you do with the person who's in a position? That person's going to have to improve to stay in that position, right? There are going to be issues with that. There's going to be HR, things that concerns they're going to have. That person's going to have issues, obviously, because what is that person going to say? I've been doing this for 20 years, right? Now you're telling me, I need to do these extra things, right? So are you willing to go through that? So that's what I'm saying. Having that readiness assessment, take stock of where your people are, and are you willing to go through this? Because it's been challenging. Resource availability, so computer, we are leveraging computer access a lot more. So how much access do your folks have to computers, right? If you're going to push e-learning to your folks, do they have computers available to them? It doesn't make sense if nobody has a computer. How are they going to do e-learning, right? So you got to kind of look at things like that. That's that development of training needs there. So that's that kind of gap analysis. Where am I today? What works today? Where do I want to be tomorrow? Develop a roadmap and start knocking those things out and start getting to where. And this is going to be, if you're going to do something like what we're doing, it's a long process. I'm almost 3 years into it, and we're just, I got lots of work to do, believe me. So, and then developing action plans. These are kind of my action plans. Are the big things that I've done is come to those definitions of what that new training program looks like, and I'll kind of show you that. I've had to develop certain things, the knowledge sources, that's another thing I'll talk a little bit about, but we had made certain investments into knowledge sources. If you're going to train somebody to operate a water plant or a wastewater plant, you need to have a knowledge source of that plant. Just like a car, you need to have an owner's manual. Actually, you need more technical information. You need kind of like a shop manual. You got to know really the proper way to operate that plant. If your folks are just kind of going in there and figuring it out and you don't have any knowledge sources and you're not showing them, giving them technical guidance, and you're not giving them procedures and right ways to do things, we're not setting them up for success. In a technical environment, we got to have these knowledge sources, both, what is it we need to do and how do we need to do it. And I'll show you examples of that. And then for us, we went towards a competency-based kind of advancement system. So what we've done is we've developed a structure where, at least at the early levels, the technical levels, you can move up and advance based on getting certain competencies. Some of them may be licenses, some of them may be certifications, some of them are internal, they're qualifications that we've defined. So you get certain ones, you can get to at least to a certain point where you can advance on that. If you're going to do that type of system, you better document what you're doing. Everybody has to agree. You can't have a system where you're advancing on competencies if everybody doesn't agree on who's qualified what. The employee, the manager, and the HR all have to have a common agreement, a system. You can't have it on some spreadsheet somewhere and then HR doesn't know what's going on and no, I'm qualified this and I did this. No, and you can't have that. It all has to be well documented and well structured. And that's, we built that into a learning management system, into our SAP system. And then finally, for us, we went to e-delivery. So I don't know, I'm pretty sure Atlanta's the same way, where you got people all over the place. You got people at plants and this and that, and I would like to figure out how much time we spent traveling around Gwinnett County. We got to get to training. Well, you're up at the water plant. Where's the training? It's at our central facility. So you have a 3-hour training class in the morning. Well, you got to leave an hour early because of traffic, right? So It's at 8 o'clock, he's got to leave at 7 o'clock, okay, 8 to 11, and then you got to have an hour lunch, and then it's an hour back. By that 3-hour class, by the time of the day, he's got about 2 hours left on the clock when he gets back to his job. Pretty much shot. What is the supervisor? 3-hour class kills an entire day. It's not very efficient. Plus the time and gas and money we're spending on traveling around the county, right? So what we're trying to do is deliver that 24/7 access to training. So we're offering more e-learning, and we're not taking away the classroom. Again, nobody likes change, right? If you just put something new out and take it away, everybody's going to complain. We just say, hey, here's additional options to do that. What we feel is, and we've already seen it, they will gravitate towards the e-learning. Why? Because it's easier. They can actually do it at home. If they're behind, they can do it at home. They can log into the system. The other hidden agenda with that is you're teaching them, you're moving towards a more computer literate workforce. You're forcing them to get on the computer. That's kind of my hidden agenda, is that I'm making you go on a computer. Some of my employees at Gwinnett County don't want to get on a computer. They simply don't want to do it. And well, this is going to kind of move them in that direction slowly. So, and I'll show you examples of this. So this is what a progression path. I know you can't see it very well. But what we have here is a bunch of columns of advancement. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is our roadmap to all the skills that we need. So after we said where are we, where we want to be, it all culminated into this chart. This is a career path. This happens to be warehouse. Happens to be our warehouse folks. But we have this for our tradespeople out in, yes?
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay.
Do you confirm that they have completed the e-learning, and do you confirm the knowledge acquisition so that you know that they can apply what they've learned and therefore be effective on the job?
Yes, exactly. So the question is, for e-learning, how do we confirm that they're learning the e-learning, right? Right now, I will say our traditional classroom, we didn't even test them in our classroom. They just sit in a class, whether they put the glasses on, whether the lights are on, we don't even know. You can tell because the ones, they sit in the back, right, and they're just sitting there, and they got the shades on, right. You don't know if the lights are on at all, or if they're just kind of what's going on in their head, right. All our e-learning, they have to do an assessment. So they have to get 80%. Anything we do e-learning has an assessment with it. They have to get 80%. We have a question bank. It may have 10, 15, 20 questions. It pulls from a pool of questions, and it's randomized. So I'm not saying you can't cheat the system, but we've made it difficult for them. And the questions are going to change over time. We can also add to the. So yes, if you're going to do e-learning, you have to assess. Exactly. You don't want basic them clicking through things. So what this is, and if anybody wants to see these in detail, I'm more than willing to share them with you. I didn't want to flood you with pieces of paper, but we have these for our engineers, for our inspectors, for our wastewater and water operators. We have them for electricians and mechanics in the facilities. We have them for our construction folks. So we have versions of these. Some of them, they're all being evolved. We have a couple that are ready to go right now. We have some still being worked on. So, but we have any ones you want to see. But this defines license, certification, training, and qualification. So just real quickly, just a baseline. A license is something that's state required. It's non-negotiable, right? It's a collection license, a wastewater 3 operator license, a CDL license. The state says these folks have to do that. We don't have any room to discuss. We have to have that done. A certification is something from an outside facility. So the National Safety Council certifies flagger, for instance. We go to them, we get training. So we're using an external program. The good thing about using that is that there's something recognized that's approved that we can just go to an external agency. Training and then a qualification, yes?
I'm sorry, but with your NSC, they're training trainers, or you send your employees to NSC to get their training?
It depends. So we have some internal folks that do certain NSC level training. We have forklift trainers that have NSC qualified. So we do have train the trainers. We have reps, NSC reps that come to us. So we have a couple local that we bring to our facility. They'll train us. So we don't really go to them. We actually, we bring them to us pretty much. So yeah. That gets into an interesting discussion about internal versus external and how do you do that. We can talk more about that here a little bit. But a qualification is something that's internal that we decide that we need to make this a requirement. What is a qualification? It's really anything you decide. How do you know you need? Well, if you go to some place and they're having problems, if they're making a lot of mistakes, right? If they never, signs that you need some type of internal qualification, there's never enough time, there's never enough resources, errors are always being made. We probably need to control that, right? We need to put some type of training or internal training program. And I'll show you an example of that where we've actually done that. So, but those are the differences in that. This is kind of the old way. This is an example of a wastewater operator. You come in, you do your basic 40 hours of wastewater training, you just get qualified, you take the license, and the mentality was, you're an operator. You figure it out, you know how to do it, you had the training, you had the licensing, so you figure it out. That's kind of the old thing, and that probably worked in the past, but that doesn't work anymore for us. That's why we needed to change internally, and we needed to make some internal qualifications. Why? Because we would send people to one plant, send them to another plant, and they would mess things up, right? We would send, one of our plants has UV disinfection, the other plant has ozone. Ozone has a lot of issues with ozone, safety issues and competency issues, right? So does anybody think that the Georgia licensing process is enough to work in an ozone facility? It's not. It's not. So there was a need there, and that's why we made an internal qualification, because this is non-negotiable. We have to do the licensing, and that trains you for any plant in Georgia. But Georgia is mostly rural. Atlanta is an exception. Gwinnett County, up until recently, they were rural too. Now because of our growth, we needed to change our program. So here's 3 plants. Here's 3 plants, and we have kind of, they're all the same process, but you still have that basic wastewater course, and you still have to get your license. But what we did is we added plant-specific training. And we did it, this is our U-Perform. We're offering them an online version of the training as well. So what it means is, you still have to do the basic wastewater, and you still have to get your license. But if you're going to our Yellow River plant, you have to do a Yellow River course, and you're going to learn about UV, or you have to do the F. White Hill course and learn about ozone, and then you have to do this skill-based qual cards, this sign-off system, to get qualified. So it's not enough just to get the license. And if you start at the F. White Hill plant and you do all that training, and you get moved over to the Yellow River plant, you have to go back and do that training. You have to do the plant-specific training. So that's that, additional technical training that we've added to make sure that they're qualified to operate these plants.
Quick question.
Yes.
So if I'm transitioning from one plant to the other, what's the ramp-up time to transition from one to the other, physically versus the actual training course itself?
Right.
So in other words, I need somebody today. Typically, historically, most folks will just shift that person from one plant to the other. Right. What's that time span of training before you make that physical shift?
So it depends, right? So if you So let's say this person was at F. Hill and they were there for 10 years, right? And a lot of the process between Yellow River and F. Hill are the same. So it may take 6 months for somebody to go through this process. For somebody who's been here a while, we might be able to sign off a lot of things. We don't want them working in the ozone till they do the ozone portion of the training yet. So they're not qualified to be in the ozone, but we can take care of preliminary, primary, a clarifier is a clarifier, right? A lot of the things are the same. So we don't, we're not starting at zero, right? We should give them credit for what they do know, but it will identify the differences. And what you're really just trying to do is make sure they get the differences done. So, good question. Here's an example of a knowledge source. So we have electronic operations manuals. So this was developed by us. I didn't do this. This was developed by CDM Smith, I believe. So you can click, and this goes many, many layers in. You can go into raw water, ozone, pre-treatment, filtration. It gets into all the equipment, the equipment numbers. It shows SCADA screens. It shows the SOPs are in here. It's got lots of technical detail. It's like going into a shop manual for your car when the mechanic fixes your car, and they can go into that. They can really get into the detail of the plant. This is the level of training. This is just the front page, but there's a lot of work to do this. Without this, as a trainer, I can't, if I don't have a knowledge source, if I don't have a place to go to reference, I can't build a training program. So I need them to reference. What we're trying to do is get them to reference the training program. If this is in place, and I have something like this, and I have SOPs, and I have technical material where I can take the person to go, now it's just a matter of building a training, getting them to read it, getting them to utilize it, testing them on it, making sure they know the information. Right? So this is pretty important. If this was something not all of our plants had this when I came here, but they were doing this on the engineering side. They were making these, and this has been an accelerator to our training programs. Without this, I would have to make something like this. I would have to make a study guide. I would have to put that information out. If we don't agree on what the right information is, we can't reference it, right? So yes.
So CDM Smith, there was an employee of Gwinnett Water.
The CDM Smith is a contractor, an engineering firm.
Okay.
So they're one of our, I don't know all use. We use like Brown and Caldwell, Hazen and Sawyer. CDM Smith is one of the major engineering firms. So that now when you have an engineer make something like this, it's going to be an engineer, right? So you need to be involved in that process because engineers and operators don't speak the same language, right? Because the engineer tries to build the perfect clock. The operator just wants to know what time it is. They don't care what made up in the clock, right? So you need to be involved in that process. We had vetting with this is a big endeavor. It takes a good year to make something like this. And you got to go with that, and then you have working groups, and you sit down, and you have the plant folks. Well, yeah, I know you're saying it like this, but that's not how we do it, right? That type of thing. So it takes a little bit to get this together, but I highly recommend these. We had SOPs and SOGs and water operator quality procedures. So these were either done or in the process of being done. So that now I can point, hey, here's the way to do something, right? What's the difference between an SOP and an SOG? SOP is something it's like cookbook, a free chlorine test or a BOD. There's a way to do it. There's certain times and things you have to meet. There's no real debate on that. And that SOP doesn't work for fixing a water main, right? Fixing a water main, there's no perfect step-by-step procedure. You have to go in there, you have to assess. So an SOG is a guide. Here are the things here's some guidance, here's some things not to do, and then you use your wisdom to figure it out. So that's the difference between those. But having both of these are critical because now I can train to these. I have something. You got to get them to use it. You got to get the operators to read these things. And you can build that into a training program.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you started before you started developing the training. You have quite a few resource materials, it sounds like, to
Yes.
start from. And I'm thinking it might be useful to, as kind of a guide. And there's a lot of different categories there, right? There was the manual, there was SOPs, there was SOGs, there was this, different things. I'm wondering if it might be possible to get a set, like from one plant, of kind of an illustration of here's an SOP, here's an SOG, here's a manual. Because when people say, well, we have some documentation, we don't have everything, I think, well, how far from everything are you?
Right.
Like, do you have one of these? Do you have that covers all
Yeah,
this?
we're willing to share that. We're open records. The way I look at it is you can ask for my stuff anyway, so I'm just going to give it to you. So there's nothing, let's just skip that open records part. I'll just give it to you. And Atlanta's not going to compete for our customers, so we have no problem with that. Anything you want a whole set, but I would definitely start with the knowledge sources.
Right.
Because that's the foundation of a training program. If you start with the training program and then you do the knowledge sources later, you're in it wasting time and backtracking. So, but certainly yes.
Okay, thank you.
So here's a qualification card. So this is internal. We said we're going to walk a person. This happens to be for a plant. We're going to walk. We need the knowledge is good. And we can do that computer, but what about the skill stuff? What about the doing stuff? What about starting and stopping and making sure people are doing that, right? And that's what this is. They're basically sign-offs. We walk the employee through influent to effluent, every major process, piece of equipment, things like that, and making sure they can do. Now, it's not everything. It's just a minimum qualification set. It's kind of like going to the police academy. You're getting a basic set of skills. Doesn't mean you're on a SWAT team. Doesn't mean you can do everything a police academy, a police officer can do, but it's giving you a baseline set of skills. So this walks through, some of these are read the SOP, some of the individual signs. I have read the SOP. Some of them, the supervisor signs, I have seen the person start and stop the grinder. And some of them are manager checks where the manager goes back and checks both the supervisor and the employee that they did it. So they get through a certain section and the manager does a walkthrough with them and they signs off that they're good. Every manager's got 10 to 15 questions they want to ask an employee about a certain area of the plant, I guarantee it. And that's their chance to do that. So that's that quality check in there. Here's a little bit about our SAP. Again, this would be your Oracle, but we have our training system built in here. It's more than, but it's our customers, our suppliers, all our books are in here, but our training module is in here. So we're documenting training that they've attended training on SAP. We're documenting their licensing, their skills, their qual cards are all in their profile on SAP. We've actually built out, we had a developer. Since we paid all this money for SAP, we got a developer to basically build us an LMS in SAP. So this is kind of what it looks like as an employee. An employee, they only care about the employee. They care about what do I need to do? And what are those things? What do I need to do now? What do I need to do to get a pay raise? That's about all they want to know, right? So this is it. And we got a little system of red lights and green lights. It's custom built. We apply it to their job. So everybody in their job has these requirements. And when you fulfill the requirements to at least the technical levels, you can move up. Once you get all the requirements for the next level, that triggers an HR to do a review of you so you can get paid more. Right? So it's a whole system that we're tracking. The employee logs in, they see this. The manager logs in, they see it for their employee under the management screens. If HR wants this information, everybody has the same information. This is our U-Perform, so this is how we're delivering. I don't work for U-Perform. Matter of fact, I hate U-Perform. There's very clunkiness about it. It's not the best system, but we already paid for it. We already had the licenses. It was already integrated in SAP. Guess what? Frank likes U-Perform now, because that's what we had, and I didn't want it. I wasn't going to go tell my boss we need to spend X thousands of dollars on a new system when we can use this one. U-Perform is basically like I don't want to talk bad about it, because it's like an early version of PowerPoint. It's very limited in what it can do, but it gets the job done. Okay, so you can use it. I wish it was more robust, but you can do videos, you can do narration, you can do assessments, you can have attachments and resources, you can do pictures, text, things like that. It's kind of like cloud-based PowerPoint.
Is there an interface with your Perform and your SAP?
Yes, so they have to get that 80% on that assessment, and then what it does is SAP pulls U-Perform every hour. It says, hey, who got stuff done? Who got stuff done? And it updates their record automatically. So there's a little system of red lights and green lights. I'm going to talk more about that this afternoon and get more into that, but it will make that red light go green light. And that's what the employee wants. The manager's on the employee because he's got a bunch of red lights. The employee wants to make the red light a green light. They do this, and then in an hour it goes green, manager's off his back. So that's the payout, I guess. We do onboarding. So part of the struggle with implementing a new system is you have a lot of people already in the system, right? So you got to train them, you got to take care of them, and things like that. But really, the best way to get up to speed quicker is start dealing with the new people as quickly as possible, right? Is to get them the right information, is to get them trained as quickly as possible. So we do have 1 day of HR onboarding, and then we have basically, we made a full week of, we do a facility tour. So so they do HR onboarding here. We do this once a month, and we do it for a week. So I have the staff, I have a few administrators, I have a training coordinator that helps me do this. But it's a pretty full week. So the first thing we do is we take them around and we see one of everything at the facility. I don't care where you work. I don't care if you're in customer service or you're an engineer or everything. We're going to go to a wastewater plant, we're going to go to a water plant, we're going to go to the lab, we're going to go to a pump station, and we're going to go to a stormwater site. We do it all in 1 day. And it's a long day, but they love it, because we found out you have a person in customer care who has no idea anything about, doesn't know anything more about how water's, made safe than the public does. They've never been to any of these facilities, right? And they're speaking to people on the phone about this. If they can't have a feeling, if they don't know what goes into all of that, and feel confident that it's done well, and that your water is safe, and I know, and I've seen it, they go to these plants and they show the effluent. They see what it comes in. I like to call it the lumpy water. Lumpy water coming in, and you see what comes out, and it looks like drinking water. Now I wouldn't quite drink it, but wow, that's pretty cool. And then they hear from the people about the pride that they take, and they hear from the subject matter experts, and they understand that there's care and there's people taking care of this water, right? And they're watching it, and they're doing their samples, and they're doing all that stuff, right? So everybody in the organization needs that. We have people, we started that about a year ago, or so, a little bit more, and then we expanded to a full week. But the first thing was that plant tour. And it's a full day, and we feed them and everything, but in my opinion, that's had huge payouts. We have people coming that's been there 15, 20 years that come on our tour. If I can't fill it up with new hires, we say, hey, I got 5 seats available. We go around in a little, it's like a park and ride airport bus type thing, and we go around the plane. So very, 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 very beneficial. We do, this is our safety day. So we do a full day of safety. It's a fire hose, it's a lot, but they learn about fall protection, they learn about accidents, they learn about a little bit about trenching, a little bit about confined space, a little bit about PPE. It's just enough to see and avoid, right? Think about it. We're sending folks out into these hazardous environments without telling them. We're just kind of, good luck, you know. Hopefully your supervisor, we need to send them off with we need to just give them a minimum skill set, right, to know the dangers. That is a trench. Don't go into the trench. There's further training you need to do, but this is what a trench is. This is a confined space. These are the things that can kill you in a confined space. Don't go in there, right? And be aware of these things before we just send them out and doing that. So we have a vendor that does that. We have a vendor in Lawrenceville called HB Next. We hire them. They made a special day for us. We said, hey, we want this, that training. They made it special for us, and we deliver it through a vendor. This is a policy day. On Thursday, we take them through, and the first thing we do is we have one of the directors, the deputies, do the kickoff, right? Meet somebody in management. Let them talk to them. Good interchange. Then we bring somebody in from HR. We bring in our fleet people to tell them about how to drive vehicles, how to get clothing, how to get boots, safety boots, things like that. So we do that whole day. The second half of the day, we go up in the computer lab and we get them logged on to the systems. And this is the most eye-opening part about it, right? We send them off, and here's your 3 passwords. You got to have 3 passwords, right? Here's your 3 passwords. Go. You're good, right? And you're good to go, right? No, they're not good to go. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They don't understand the systems. They haven't. We've been in it. We know how to SAP versus the internet and how to get your mail and how you do this stuff. I can tell you from my experience, we're hiring people of different competency levels with computers. I see it once a month. Some people, to be honest with you, the millennials, they're off to the races. I mean, you get them going, and I call it choose your own adventure. I give them a bunch of stuff to do, like 10 different things, and they're off to the races. They're knocking stuff out. They're doing their benefits. They watch their ethics video. They're getting their fuel site training. Some of them are starting their CDL training already on that first day. I mean, they're gone. They're just off to the races. You just got to tell them where to go. Some people, it takes the most of that time just to get them logged in. I mean, literally, you're resetting passwords. I don't know what this is. They can't understand the different systems, you know. So there's some challenges there. So that's very beneficial. And then the last thing is we do defensive driving on the last day. That's a county requirement, is that before you can drive a vehicle. I don't know if you're the same way, but we're basically our own insurance company. We have a requirement to get defensive driving. So the sooner I can get you to defensive driving class, the sooner you can drive a vehicle. And for about, 40-50% of our employees, their primary job is to drive vehicles around. So it's very important that we get them their defensive driving quickly.
Is that through NSC?
So that is through the National Safety Council. They can do that for you. We said, hey, they actually do it at a county level. The problem we had, the county was doing it, but there was like a 3-month back wait on it. We said we don't want to wait 90 days to drive it. So what we did is my training coordinator works for me. I said, hey, go get your NSC train the trainer. So he's certified, he trains that course, and now we do it internally. We actually have other county employees coming to us. If we have space available, we let the other P&D comes, or we have other folks come to us all the time because they don't have the budgets, to be honest with you, that we do. So here's an example of the plant tours. So they wastewater, water, pump station. They see one of everything. Very, very good day. It's a long day, and they see a lot, but. Here's our safety day. We have a vendor come in, very good vendor. They do a really good job of teaching kind of just the minimum things. It's not everything, but just enough to stay out of the big concerns. there's your onboarding day, all, time sheets, how to get uniforms, how to do that. So we sit down and we take that time to make sure, if we don't do this, somebody has to do this with them. And the managers love this because we tell them, hey, you don't have to send them to us, but you have to train them. If you don't send them to us, it's on you. If you want them to go to work, they're yours. They're like, no, we'll send them to you. Because they're going to have to do all this if we don't do it. They actually like this a lot. If you do it at the beginning, they don't miss a person. Once that person gets into rotation and gets on the shift and everything, it's hard to get them out. The sooner you do it, if you do it right at the beginning of the hire, they don't even know. They just know they don't get them until this day. But it's so much easier to handle it this way. And that's our defensive driving course every 3 years. So we do this internally. Some of them we do internally, some of them we do externally. You can get really into the money issues and which one's more cost effective if that's a concern. It's probably, overall, the long haul, it's probably more cost effective to have a professional come in and do it. Because if you have internal instructors, you have to pay them all the time. And you have to pay them even when they're not instructing and things like that. So it depends on what it is and everything. But what I would say is just focus on what's most effective for you. Right? As long as you can afford it, there may be some financial decisions, but focus on what's effective or what works for you, right? Sometimes you can do it internally. We do a lot of internal training. We do a lot of external training. We're just trying to get, our main focus is getting the employees trained. And yes, we look at the financial piece of it, but it probably washes out in the end, and we do track that stuff, but focus on effectiveness. And then the other last thing I'll just say is my boss makes me do a strategic business plan. It's one of those things you don't do out of, they're not, it's a lot of work to get this done, right? You've got to align everything. But this has been a very good exercise for me to understand the value of training and sell that value to the organization. When you take the time and you come up with strategies and you align it with what the organization wants to do, they become your advocates. When they're talking and they're talking to the other bosses, they're talking about training. Because they're getting the things they want done. And they're achieving their goals through your training. So I bring this up as a final point, as a way to, if you have problems selling the value of training, align it to the goals of your bosses, right? And they're going to be more apt to be your advocates and support your training. So I just throw that out as a final pitch. Well, that's it. That's kind of the technical side. So the big things is probably defining what all those things are that your folks need, putting them down on a piece of paper. That was that progression path, all those licenses and certifications. When we did that, it was a rise up. It was more training than we were doing before. So that's going to cost money, right? So you have to understand that. And that is, you kind of, when we did that, we just said, hey, what do we want? What is give us the best quality employee? What training do they need at what levels, right? And that's how we did that, and we got support from our management, and they liked what we were doing, so that's allowed us to move forward with that. So, any questions? Kind of open it up. Yes.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask is, as you looked at the actual training, how do you tie that metrics-wise to service level agreements or the metrics for expectations for the department? You talking about aligning the strategic plan. I'm sorry. How do you connect the training that you're doing to whatever your current service level agreements are, as well as tracking it from a metric standpoint, so it aligns with the strategic plan?
So we do, some of the metrics we do, as far as service level agreements, for what?
For what? Do you guys have service level agreements? Is that the first question?
No, not that. No, I don't think. At least from the training standpoint, I don't connect to those. I do look at certain things that I do have metrics that tie back into the business plan, I look at, one of the metrics I had was, when they first started this, is we needed 40 hours of training per employee per year, per annual. Well, that's okay, that's a metric, we can measure that, but what does that mean, right? You can do 40 hours of non-useful training, we can do 40 hours of yoga, right? And is that helping us being better operators, right? So some of those metrics that we've actually changed, so we don't actually look at that so much as we look at, I actually tie my training to safety incidents. So now, I can't, it's not only training, right? But, so one thing that happened last year, we were looking at safety incidents or reportable incidents. And we saw a spike go up last year. And we said, hey, we can apply that. I was watching those safety incidents and we said, we need some training here, right? So we basically had to do a defensive driving, we called it a distracted driving campaign. And we brought in the NSC, and everybody had to go into distracted driving. And we had a bunch of different levels of training and everything. And our rate was going up, and then it always goes up a little bit, but it was spiking and it kind of went back to normal. So that's where you can apply training. Now, I won't say training is the only thing that goes on with safety, but training is a stake in that. Customer service. How is your customer service? What is your drop rates and your satisfaction rates? Are you tracking that? That's an opportunity to